I didn't see the knife in her hand until it was already in my back. Not literally, of course. Karina wore pearls and posted motivational quotes on LinkedIn. She didn't need a knife. Her weapon of choice was a performance review, reworded just enough to call me difficult to manage, after I'd flagged inconsistencies in our Q2 data reports. My name's Elena Rivera, and I used to be a senior data analytics lead at Ardent Dynamics, a global consultancy with branches on every continent and more buzzwords than ethics. I built models that saved clients millions and trained half the department on predictive analytics. I wasn't just good at my job, I loved it. Numbers made sense. Patterns told stories. I lived for that. Karina, on the other hand, lived for promotion. And she had her sights set on a role opening in our Brussels office. Senior European Strategy Director. The kind of title that makes your business card feel heavier. Problem was, Ardent only had one slot open, and my performance had started attracting attention from the same decision-makers Karina needed to impress. Everything went downhill after the awards ceremony. I'd just been recognized internally for a high-impact client retention model I designed. The kind of project that brought in repeat business and raised eyebrows in C-suite. 2 weeks later, Karina reassigned half my team, started CCing VPs on routine emails, and suddenly my access to key databases expired. I put in IT tickets. I asked questions. I got vague answers. Then came the final blow. An emergency audit on a data set I'd never touched. She claimed I'd signed off on it. I hadn't. But the metadata showed my credentials were used. I couldn't prove the login wasn't me. HR nodded sympathetically as they handed me the termination letter. Best of luck moving forward. Best of luck. Like this was a game. No appeal. No explanation. Just a polite escort from the office like I was a disgraced reality show contestant. I didn't even cry. I just drove home to my one-bedroom in Denver, changed into sweatpants and stared at the wall for 6 hours, wondering if my career had died in that boardroom. The next morning I woke up still in my clothes, the sun slicing through the blinds like it was mocking me. My inbox was already flooded. 2 recruiter rejections, 1 LinkedIn message from a former coworker. So sorry to hear. Let's grab coffee sometime. And a system alert that my corporate access had officially been revoked. It was over. I applied for a dozen jobs that week, tailoring each resume, writing careful cover letters that danced around the sudden gap in my employment history. Every word felt like swallowing glass. The truth was too dangerous to say aloud. I was sabotaged. But companies don't want messy stories. They want alignment, synergy, a positive outlook. So I smiled into the void and kept applying. Weeks passed. Savings drained. Rent still wanted paying. Eventually I stopped applying. Not forever, just for the day. Then another. Then 2 weeks. Then I signed up for a delivery gig. Food mostly. Sometimes packages. It felt humiliating at first, like hiding behind a baseball cap, and no eye contact could somehow protect my old identity. Elena Rivera, senior analyst, reduced to buzzing apartment intercoms and waiting on porches. But weirdly, something shifted. I was moving. I was breathing real air, not recirculated HVAC. I had time to think, not about performance reviews or promotion politics, but about what I actually wanted. At night, I signed up for online courses, business leadership, updated analytics tools, even a little UX design just because it was interesting. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know anyone anything anymore. I found a cheap apartment in another city, Portland, where no one knew me. No whispers. No forced smiles. Just me and the quiet grind of starting over. I built a new routine. Deliveries by day, coursework by night. Coffee with the same barista every morning. Her name was Ray. She remembered my order by day 3, and never asked what I used to do. Bless her for that. Months passed. Then a year. I started consulting on the side. Small businesses who couldn't afford big agency rates but needed someone who could tell them where their money was leaking. It started with a yoga studio, then a local bakery, then a nonprofit. Word got around. Not fast but steadily. One night, sitting on my creaky couch with a lukewarm burrito and too many browser tabs open, it hit me. Maybe I wasn't rebuilding my old life. Maybe I was building something new. Started small like most real things do. A local pet supply store, paw and parcel, was drowning in Excel sheets and invoices that didn't match their cash flow. The owner, Jamie, had heard about me through the bakery I'd helped. She asked if I could just take a look. I said sure. For free. I hadn't yet convinced myself I was worth charging. Turned out, she was using a point-of-sale system that double-counted loyalty discounts, throwing off monthly revenue reports by nearly 12%. I cleaned it up, built her a dashboard using a basic BI tool, and trained her assistant manager on how to use it. When I left, Jamie hugged me. I don't think I'd been hugged professionally before. After that, I started charging. Not much at first. Just enough to stop resenting the time it took. Then I bumped the rate up. Once I realized clients didn't flinch, they expected to pay for clarity. I wasn't giving them spreadsheets, I was giving them peace of mind. Somewhere in that second year, I met Theo, freelance developer, spreadsheet skeptic, and unashamed coffee snob. We crossed paths at a co-working space after I helped him debug a misbehaving data import. "You ever thought about doing this full-time?" he asked. I laughed. Doing what? Spreadsheets. No. Helping people actually understand their numbers. You're not a consultant. You're a translator. The phrase stuck. By the end of that month, we'd looped in an operations was named Mira who could build a project plan out of sticky notes in panic. We weren't flashy, just three people tired of watching small businesses get steamrolled by overpriced firms and buzzword factories. We called ourselves Northling Analytics, half as a joke, half as a nod to starting over up north. Our mission? Transparency, empowerment, and no BS. We help business owners understand their own data well enough to stop fearing it. We didn't promise the moon. We just helped people stop guessing. By the time we hit our second quarter, we had a dozen clients and just enough cash to rent a tiny shared office with one squeaky door and zero natural light. But it was ours. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel like I was pretending anymore. 16 months after Karina wrecked my career, I got an email that made me stare at the screen longer than I cared to admit. Subject line, potential collaboration opportunity. The sender? Larchmont Group. A name I recognized immediately, one of Ardent Dynamics' biggest former partners. They'd quietly ended their contract with Ardent a while back, and rumor had it, not on good terms. I hadn't thought about them in a year. "Hi Elena," it began. "We were referred by one of your clients. We're undergoing a data audit and exploring new consulting partners for long-term support. Would you be available to discuss?" I reread it 3 times. Then I laughed out loud, sharp, surprised, disbelieving. The universe had a sense of humor. I didn't mention Ardent in my reply. Just accepted the call. Mira helped me prep, her usual calm demeanor grounding me. "Don't let the name spook you," she said. "You're not the same person they could have hired back then. You're better now." The initial call was smooth. Their director of operations, Rowan, explained they were cleaning house. Their data infrastructure was outdated, their decision-making erratic. They needed someone who could build tools, but more importantly, trust. Their last partner, Rowan said delicately, had struggled with transparency. A name was never mentioned, but I didn't need one. I knew it had been Karina. That one sentence, struggled with transparency, hit like a cold glass of water to the face. She hadn't just sabotaged me. She kept going, spun the same tricks on a bigger stage, and eventually the mask slipped. That was the real difference between us. Karina built a career on manipulation. I was building mine on honesty. By the end of the month, Larchmont signed a contract with Northling. It was our biggest project yet. A full data revamp across 5 departments. A dream client. I still hadn't told them about my past. I didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. During one of the onboarding meetings, Rowan paused and said, "Your team, you make this whole thing feel less overwhelming. We've worked with big firms. They gave us numbers. You give us understanding." I smiled, but my heart stung a little. That was what I'd always wanted to do, even back at Ardent. But now I didn't need anyone's permission. It was a Tuesday around 3 p.m. when it happened. I was walking back from a Larchmont client session, craving something sweet and impulsive, something like a blueberry muffin in 5 minutes without a Slack notification. So I ducked into a coffee shop near the office. New place. Exposed brick, local art, indie playlist humming under the buzz of espresso machines. I barely noticed her at first. Behind the counter, wearing a green apron and that tight-lipped customer service smile, stood Karina. I froze. Just for a second. The same way your body reacts when it hears a song from a nightmare. She didn't recognize me at first. Her hair was shorter. No more power heels or pinstripe suits. Just sneakers, a plain name tag, and tired eyes that avoided direct contact. I stepped forward slowly, ordered my muffin and coffee like nothing was amiss. When I handed over my card, her eyes flicked to the name. Elena, she said, blinking like she wasn't sure if it was me or just a cruel trick of memory. Hi, Karina. I kept my voice neutral, warm even. She swallowed. Wow. It's been a while. 2 years, I replied, accepting the receipt. How are you? A pause. I'm in a transition. I didn't ask what happened. I didn't need to. She must have seen something in my eyes, maybe the recognition, maybe the lack of pity. Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing else. Just turned to grab my coffee. When she handed it over, our fingers didn't touch. I hope things are going well, she said finally, the way someone might comment on the weather before a storm. They are, I said, and I meant it. Really well, actually. I walked out of that coffee shop lighter than I expected. No gloating. No cruel smirk. Just a quiet, settled sense that the story had turned the page. Not because I forced it, but because I kept writing. Karina had tried to bury me, but all she'd really done was plant me somewhere new. That night, I told Mira and Theo over drinks. They both blinked in surprise, then Mira just said, "And you didn't throw the muffin in her face? I'm proud of you." We laughed, and it wasn't sharp or bitter. It was real. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't haunted. I was healed. Success didn't happen in a montage. It came in small, quiet moments, like the first time a client asked me to speak on a panel, or when Mira built a hiring pipeline, and we brought on 2 junior analysts, both women, both brilliant, both stunned to find a workplace that didn't reek of competition and thinly veiled burnout. Or when Theo handed me a thick envelope with founding partner agreement written across the front in crisp Helvetica. And I realized this thing we'd built wasn't just surviving, it was maturing. We weren't just a boutique firm anymore. We were trusted. But with growth came something unexpected. Fear. Not the old kind like fear of being fired or lied about. This was new. This was leadership fear. The kind where people look to you for answers and you wonder if you have any. I caught myself staring at a budget sheet one night, overwhelmed. Mira had just pitched hiring a full-time project manager. Theo wanted to move us into a bigger space. We could afford both, technically. But the idea of making a wrong move and ruining everything made my chest tighten. That's when I remembered Karina. She led by control, by intimidation, by making people smaller so she could feel big. And here I was, afraid of leading at all because I didn't want to become her. It hit me like a freight train. Fear doesn't protect you from becoming the villain. It just keeps you from becoming anything at all. I didn't want to control people. I wanted to trust them. I didn't want to hoard power. I wanted to share it, so I called a team meeting. Not formal, just coffee and chairs in a circle. I don't have all the answers, I told them, but I do have questions. And I trust this team to help figure them out. And they did. Mira mapped out our operational gaps. Theo flagged automation opportunities that would save us thousands. The juniors? They offered insights I'd missed entirely, because they weren't afraid to ask what no one else would. That night, after everyone left, I stayed back to clean up the empty mugs and scribbled whiteboards. I stood in that rented space, the flickering overhead lights, the cheap carpet, and felt something hum in my chest. Not fear. Not even pride. Just this steady, quiet truth. I was becoming the kind of leader I never had. We signed our 20th client on a windy Thursday in March. A small manufacturing firm in Michigan with too many spreadsheets and not enough answers. The contract wasn't flashy, but it was sustainable. Recurring. Real. After I hung up the call, Theo tossed a stress ball across the office and said, "You know, we're not scrappy anymore. We're official." I laughed. Define official. You have a business credit card with your name on it, and people asking you for work. He wasn't wrong. That weekend, we hosted a workshop for a regional chamber of commerce. Nothing fancy. Just a rented conference room, catered coffee, and a projector that refused to focus no matter how many times Theo swore at it. But the room was packed. Small business owners. Solo consultants. A nonprofit or two. I stood in front of them wearing a blazer that didn't feel like armor anymore, and clicked through slides explaining how data could be a tool, not a threat. And halfway through, I caught sight of a woman in the back row, nodding slowly, a highlighter in her hand, her notebook already full. That used to be me. Hungry. Hopeful. trying to make sense of numbers and power in language I hadn't been taught. After the workshop, she came up to me. "I'm Carla," she said. "This is going to sound weird, but I almost didn't come today. I felt so behind for so long. Like everyone else has some manual I never got." I smiled. "That's not weird at all. I built a whole company for people who feel that way." She blinked. "Really? Really?" I said. "Data shouldn't feel like a gatekeeper. It should feel like a flashlight." She teared up. Just a little. Then she nodded, clutched her folder tighter, and whispered, "Thank you." After she left, I stood in the hallway by the vending machine, drinking bad coffee and letting the weight of that moment sink in. It wasn't about analytics. It never really was. It was about helping people who've been made to feel small understand they were always capable. They just needed the right translation. For the first time since I'd left Arden, I didn't feel like I was rebuilding a career. I felt like I was right where I was supposed to be. About a month into our contract with Larchmont Group, I found myself on a video call with their internal audit lead, a sharp, kind woman named Divya. She'd been digging through 2 years of vendor reports and system logs, trying to untangle what had gone wrong before we were brought in. Halfway through the meeting, she paused. "Elena," she said, "can I ask you something a little off script?" "Sure," I replied, sipping lukewarm coffee. "Were you ever connected to Arden Dynamics?" The question hit like a flicker of lightning, not a storm, quick, sharp, illuminating. I said. 2 years ago. I led analytics for their Western region." Divya nodded. "I thought your name looked familiar." There was a quiet moment before she added, "We ended our contract with Arden because of inconsistencies. Data being adjusted post-sign-off. Senior signatures on documents that frankly didn't line up. When we inquired, well, we got more attitude than answers." She didn't say a name, but I knew who she meant. "Karina." "I understand," I said evenly. "I wasn't involved in that phase, but I respect your caution." Divya tilted her head. "That's the thing, though. Since we started working with you, every projection has come with an audit trail. Every assumption is flagged and cited. You don't just give us answers, you show us how you got there." I nodded. "Transparency's kind of our thing." She smiled. "We've noticed." "And thank you." After the call, I sat alone in the office, screen glowing, the city dark outside. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't need to. Karina's lies had unraveled themselves. No shouting. No takedown. Just truth, gently surfacing like a ripple becoming a wave. And I didn't need to be the one who pulled it into the light. I just needed to keep doing the work, with integrity, with care, without fear. Later that night, I sent Theo and Mira a message. "I think we're finally doing more than growing. I think we're building trust." Theo replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Mira sent a champagne bottle. And for once, that little celebration didn't feel premature. It felt earned. It was a rainy afternoon, one of those spring days where the clouds hang low and everyone forgets how to drive. When I saw her again. Karina. Not at the coffee shop this time. That job hadn't lasted, apparently. No green apron, no espresso machine hissing behind her. Just her, sitting alone on a bus bench, nursing a paper cup like it was the last warm thing in her life. I was across the street, on my way back from a client site, umbrella tucked against the wind. I could have kept walking. I should have. But I stopped. Not to gawk. Not to speak. Just to see. She looked thinner. Smaller. Not physically, just in presence. The woman who once controlled rooms with a raised eyebrow now sat slouched, eyes distant, waiting for something I doubted would come. I didn't feel anger. Or pity. What I felt was clarity. There was a time when her opinion of me could make or break my week. When her approval felt like oxygen. But now? She was just a person. Someone who made choices. Someone who let fear and ambition hollow her out. Someone who mistook control for leadership and silence for strength. I crossed the street without approaching her. I don't think she saw me. Back at the office, Mira was scribbling notes on a whiteboard. Theo was debugging a dashboard. One of our interns asked if she could pitch an idea. I nodded and listened. And the whole time I kept thinking, this is what power looks like. Not domination. Not intimidation. But a room where everyone can speak. Where nobody's afraid to be wrong. I remembered my first job, fresh out of grad school, wearing heels too high and a voice too soft. I thought success meant mimicking the people in charge. Now I knew better. It meant rewriting the rules entirely. Karina had once fired me to protect her throne. But I hadn't wanted her throne. I wanted a table where more people could sit. And I had built it. Later that night, as I locked up, I looked around the office, At the scatter of coffee mugs, the half-done sketches on the corkboard, the business cards we kept forgetting to reorder, and felt the deepest kind of peace. Karina was no longer my shadow. And I was no longer running. A year after that rainy afternoon, I stood in front of a room full of strangers, invited to speak at a conference titled Women in Data. Redefining Leadership. It wasn't the kind of thing I used to say yes to. I was more comfortable behind dashboards than podiums. But something in me had changed. The conference hall was modest. Folding chairs. Fluorescent lights. The kind of place where people come to learn, not perform. I looked out at the faces, young professionals, mid-career pivots, a few grizzled veterans with open notebooks. And I said what no resume ever does. I didn't get here because I played the game right. I got here because someone tried to take me off the board entirely. A few people blinked. One woman nodded slowly. I was fired for a mistake I didn't make, I continued. And for a while I thought that was the end of my story, that I'd never rebuild what I lost. I told them about deliveries in the rain, about coding until 2 a.m. with tutorials running at 1.5x speed, about free workshops for businesses that couldn't afford consultants, about how humility became my biggest asset, not my shame. And then I told them the truth that took me years to learn. You don't have to become like the people who hurt you, just to survive them. The room was quiet. A good kind of quiet. Afterwards, a line of people formed. They thanked me. Some shared their own stories. One woman, maybe 24, said she'd been crying in her car for days after being passed over for a promotion she trained her boss to take. You made me feel like I'm not crazy, she whispered. I wanted to tell her something wise. But all I said was, you're not. And you're not alone. That night, back in our now expanded office. Real light, real windows, even a plant we hadn't killed yet. I sat at my desk, shoes off, sipping tea. Mira was typing something intensely. Theo had a new playlist going. The interns were packing up, still laughing about something. And I realized, this was the victory. Not revenge. Not a headline. But a space where people could do their best work and still feel human. A space I had helped shape, not out of bitterness but because I finally understood my own value. Karina gave me the fall. But I gave myself the rise. And in the end that made all the difference.